I'm John Traeger, curator of the Desert Collections here at the Huntington. And
Hi, I'm Eric, Desert Collections Nursery Assistant.
And we are going to collect pollen today from this specimen and store it for pollination of this specimen that we expect to open up tomorrow. So it's a perfect alignment of the Amorphophallus in that we're getting mature pollen on one day that can be used in pretty short order for pollinating the females that will be receptive as soon as this opens up tomorrow. We don't always have the luxury of having two plants flowering at the same time, or more or less at the same time. So it's perfect synchrony and out of alignment synchrony in this case, which is just what we want. First, we're going to cut a window into this one to see what stage of pollen dehiscence we're at.
Not on the cold, right? Yeah. What you can see at this point are the female flowers that have the swollen orange ovary at the base. The burgundy colored style emerges from that, and the stigmatic surface is on the tip of that. What we're looking for is pollen, and there's a little bit of pollen that's dripping down from the male flowers. So it's just beginning to dehisce. So we are close enough to pollen dehiscence that we're going to go ahead and take off the rest of the spade. So we saw through the window that there was a little bit of pollen dehiscence, and the pollen is dripping down onto the female flowers, but they're no longer receptive, so we aren't going to get any fruit out of this plant. However, we're seeing good pollen dehiscence. You can see it's dehiscing right here in strings of gummy pollen, and that's what we're going to be harvesting to use to pollinate the next one. And we have two assistants who are going to help us collect this pollen. Botanical interns from this year, Eileen and Mike. And really, Eileen helped us do this with the last one a couple of weeks ago, so she's going to demonstrate the collecting method, and then Kaya will get to do some of that too.
Yeah.
So we did have a specimen that flowered a couple of weeks ago, and when we harvested the pollen, it was much gummier, and it stuck more to the brush. Here it's a little drier, which is fine. You got the technique too?
Did you guys get a little separate? It's okay. Don't worry about it. There's enough to get out. There you go. So I like how this is funded while I was doing it in case anything fell. I sure does.
Any questions as we're going along here?
How will you be pollinating this one using the specimen that you're collecting right now?
So we're putting the pollen into this vial, and actually we did some experimenting with the last pollen collection as to the proper storage. I'm not sure if any conclusions were made from that.
Do you want me to explain that?
Yeah.
I can explain
That's
that.
what we're doing.
Yeah, so we collected pollen from Alan the corpse flower, and after we collected it, we went and stored the pollen in 4 different temperatures. And then we also prepared 10 plates of different like hormone media with sugar and chemicals. And then we wanted to test which one of those the pollen would germinate in best, and that would tell us the viability of the pollen, so that way we would know if it was worth storing or not in the first place.
So what did you find?
The results were inconclusive, and we had a few ideas of why that may be. The results were inconclusive, and we have a few ideas of why that may be, but that's why we're doing this again, and then hopefully, if we have more conclusive results, that'll be it. If not, we can collect pollen from this one as well and see. There were a few different factors that we didn't have control over that we do today. So we'll see if it works out, and maybe it'll be good.
There was another question here. So if we are successful in pollinating this one, the fruit development will happen over the next couple of months. And typically after the flowering, the whole spadix collapses, but down to about this point. So the flower-bearing portion of the peduncle will persist and gradually thicken up, and those ovaries will start to swell.
A lot of people ask, is the fruit edible?
The fruit is probably not edible. And in fact, some of the aeroids are toxic and have pretty potent alkaloids that you don't want to mess with, as well as calcium oxalate crystals that'll irritate the mucous membrane of the mouth. So gum cane, for example, the common houseplant Dieffenbachia, is in this family, and it's so named because if you chew on it, your mouth will swell up and come top. So hence the name gum cane. Probably in nature, birds do eat the fruits, and it's the hornbills that are thought to be the primary distributors of the seeds.
Who was the primary distributor?
Hornbills, large birds with a prominent horny process on them.
How much do we have here? How much do we expect a lot of fruit? I know we have a refrigerator, but
Right, we had one that fruited some years ago and it produced a very nice,
Is it gonna look like this? Yeah. Or is it look like that? You say it's successful or? is it
Yes.
gonna look like that?
well, the pericarp, the red part of the fruit will often develop, whether or not there is mature seed inside or viable seed. And being a monocot, it's on a plan of 3s, so it has the potential to produce as many as 3 seeds per fruit. But often not all of them get pollinated, so you may get 1 fruit, you may get 2, you may get 3, you may get none. However, the pericarp may develop.
What is the part of the flower that's like the stinky part?
The stinky part is we've removed the stinky part, and actually it's the compounds that are produced are dimethyl sulfide and trimethyl sulfide, and they're produced from the interior of the spathe. There are glands on the inner surface, and the whole structure is adapted to disseminate the aroma to attract the pollinators. So the spathe acts as a funnel to funnel the aroma, and at maturity, this structure, the spadix, actually generates heat. So it creates convective distribution of those chemicals. Individual fruits will be about the size of an olive.
It's carnivorous, correct?
No, it's not. The question is whether it's carnivorous, and it might look like you wouldn't want to get too close to this thing, or you might not survive, but perfectly harmless, not carnivorous. But it does have an aroma that smells like a dead animal. It's not because it just ate something that's not smelling
Oh,
good.
so it doesn't attract the flies to eat them then? That's just the pollinators?
Exactly. It's just using the insects that are attracted as pollinators. And in habitat, it's thought that those are probably sweat bees more than anything else, but a range of insects come. There are carrion beetles and
Not flies?
flies will come as well. But
Okay,
the
but
sweat
they're,
bees,
but the belief is that they are kind of a general, they're not specific to one or a handful of species in pollination, they can get pollinated by a range of species.
that's entirely possible that there are a range of pollinators that actually do the job. Just as in agaves, for example, when they send up that huge flower stalk, bees and moths and butterflies and maybe bats pollinate those. So here it's a range of species.
Because when these, on times when I've been here when they bloom before during the evening, I can actually see flies coming through the meadows. As soon as they begin to open.
Yeah.
The flies are definitely attracted by the aroma.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That's true. I don't know if we're gonna have that.
When we're doing on pollen collection, like you've got.